Welcome to the Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Virtual Church. My name is Wayne Johnson, and even though we cannot physically get together this morning, I'm very glad we can get together through this pre-recorded virtual service. Today our speaker is Kiran Singh Sarah. He is president of the International Storytelling Center. The ISC is dedicated to enriching people's lives around the world. He has been very involved in award-winning arts, culture, and human rights efforts. He has led many training seminars to U.S. government departments. Kiran believes that storytelling offers the means to achieve peace and end conflict in the world.
We light this chalice with compassion for all people of the earth. We light this chalice for equality for all children at their birth. We illuminate to end all hate with peace and freedom for all. All of this plus love and bliss, the greatest joys of all. All of this plus love and bliss, the greatest joys of all.
Our music today was specifically chosen by our guest, Kiran. The first song is Redemption Song by Bob Marley, performed by Keras. Kiran tells me it is a sort of a personal anthem, and Bob Marley was his guru and storytelling hero as a kid.
Old pirates, yes, they rob I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the books. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs, these songs of freedom, these songs of freedom, these songs of freedom, these songs of freedom.
We will sing Loving Kindness next. Please hold a light in your heart to dispel the darkness, to honor someone or some event, or to lift up a memory.
May we be filled with love and kindness. May we be loved. May we be filled with love and
Namaste. Hello everyone. I want to start off by just raising your hand of how many of you consider yourselves to be storytellers. Thanks. Well, my name is Kiran Singh Sarai and I'm the president of our non-profit organization, the International Storytelling Center in Jonesboro, Tennessee, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with already. In my line of work, I am inundated with stories all day, every day, and I love it. And I believe passionately in the power that stories and storytelling have to bring to peace, tolerance, and understanding to our world. And that is what I'd like to speak about today. Stories for peace, for justice and healing, and as medicine for our communities, and also for ourselves. Now, I've been with the International Storytelling Center since 2013, but my organization's work began just over 40 years ago when a local high school teacher decided to save a dying mountain town by creating an annual event, a storytelling event that he boldly called the National Storytelling Festival. Now, it was a small event. There were 60 people that gathered around the wagon. The stages were hay bales. But there was enough magic there to spark a movement and something that my predecessor likes to call a storytelling revolution. Storytelling revolution. It kind of has a ring to it, doesn't it? Well, around the same time, there was less quaint revolutions happening in other parts of the world, and one of them involved my family. My family were living in Uganda at the time, and in the summer of 1972, 4 years before I was born, there was an announcement on Ugandan public radio from the then dictator Idi Amin. He declared that all Ugandan Asians had 3 months to leave the country, or they would all be executed. That meant around 50,000 people, including my family, had 3 months to flee the country. Many fled the borders. My family left for Britain. They couldn't carry much, and what they did have was taken by robbers en route to the airport. Having left behind all their possessions and the tropical heat of East Africa, they arrived in a small English town called Eastbourne in the middle of a British winter. And this is where I was born. For the most part, the vast majority of people were incredibly kind and they were welcoming to my family. But there were some that were not so welcoming. As an immigrant family, I was the first person of colour born in my hometown. There was, unfortunately, racism in our small community and in our nation. But as a kid, that's not how you think of it. I just knew it was hard to understand why I felt so different. Home was always a safe and familiar space, But whenever I had to leave the house, I felt like I had to be constantly on my guard. It was hard to concentrate at school, and sometimes I ended up causing trouble instead. But things started to change for me when my head teacher in our weekly school assemblies started to tell stories. Mr. George was an older gentleman. He was white. He wore a tweed jacket and a kind face. He told us folk tales and traditional stories from all over the world, and one of them really spoke to me. It was a story about a prince who gives up his worldly riches and goes out into the world to explore the world. And he takes two objects with him, a cup and a toothbrush. And one day he looks out to see a man break a twig from a tree and chewing it to release these juices that would clean his teeth. And he realized he didn't need his toothbrush anymore, so he threw it away. Another day he sees someone bent double by a river, cupping their hands together in the shape of a bowl in order to drink the water. So he threw away his cup, realizing he didn't need that either. Listening to that story, I began to observe the world in a different way. Not only did that story paint a picture of a world beyond what I already knew or understood around me, but it connected me to the idea that perhaps the world provides all the things that we need to live in it. That story helped turn my fear into hope. It made me see the possibilities before when I'd just seen the challenges. It helped me see my own family's difficult situation, my parents showing up in an unfamiliar country with nothing but the shirts on their back, in a new way. They didn't need material things to connect to new people or have these new experiences, or to remember the old ones. I began to understand myself, the world, and my place in that world, and I started to see the outlines of the story that I wanted to see in the world, and how I could make that happen. Now fast forward many years now to 2011, and I found myself thinking about Mr. George's Prince again when I left my job in Scotland to become a Rotary Peace Fellow at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. I more or less gave away all my possessions, and I packed what I could into 2 small suitcases, but I did pack a toothbrush and a cup. I reflected back on my parents' arrival in the UK all those years ago. They couldn't take their personal possessions with them, but they could take their memories, and they could take their traditions, and they kept them alive through the stories that they passed on to me. And now I was doing the same thing. At the University of North Carolina, my focus was on social justice folklore and storytelling. And after I graduated, I accepted my position at the International Storytelling Center. Now, just a few weeks after that, I was helping to host the 41st Annual National Storytelling Festival. Now, it's not 60 people and some hay bales type of event these days. The festival has grown so much that we draw 11,000 people from across the country and around the world who all converge in Jonesboro for a long weekend of live performance storytelling. I heard some amazing stories that first weekend, and I've heard many since. But one of those stories still stands out to me. It was evening, and I had joined the crowd in one of our circus-style big top tents to hear a master storyteller called Elizabeth Ellis. And she closed her program with a story about a difficult time and divisive time in this nation's history, the Civil War. Her story was about a group of Confederate mothers who were laying flowered wreaths at the gravestones of their fallen sons when they saw that the gravestones of fallen Union soldiers were bare. In one powerful act of empathy, they decided to lay wreaths at those graves as well. In a sense, they were able to see the story behind the story. They could look past the day-to-day conflicts of war to recognize that Union soldiers were also the sons of mothers that lived far away. They felt a strong connection to the grieving mothers on the other side of the conflict. I could see clearly what I knew in my heart to be true. Stories help us understand one another on a human level. Harnessing the power of storytelling to build a better world is not easy, but I believe it's an idea worth cultivating. In my work, I am incredibly fortunate to help communities learn how to use story to strengthen their learning. I get to partner with schools across the region and the nation, the Smithsonian, NASA. We get to train and mentor young storytellers, young people, to present at events such as International Day of Peace at the United Nations headquarters in New York City. I get to train diplomats in Washington, D.C. on learning how to break down divisions between groups and lead bipartisan story dialogue at the Senate to ensure that we can put peace and genocide prevention policy into US law, which we have. I even get to work with the Pentagon and the Department of Defense to imagine how they can use storytelling as a tool for non-violent communication and as an alternative to violent combat. And why do we do that? We do that because stories matter, and I believe they matter a lot. I'd like to give an example. A few years ago, I was asked to lead a workshop for a group of high school students as part of a series of events in Charleston, South Carolina. I was asked to lead this as a project geared towards fostering dialogue, healing, and community building following the tragic events that took place 6 months before that, when 9 people's lives were violently taken at Mother Emanuel Church, a traditionally African American church. I started that workshop with the same question I asked all of you. How many of you consider yourselves to be storytellers? Well, only a few hands went up. But then I asked them to think about what home meant for them, to describe their city, their lives, their walk home from school, their families, what matters to them, and by the end of a 3-hour workshop, all of them had a story to tell. And for one soft-spoken student called Chankisha, she decided to tell her story at a local event a few weeks later, and she did so, she explained, as a sort of response to the way that she sees people that look like her portrayed on the news. She wanted to tell her story so other people would understand her through her own words instead of somebody else's. Now, I think that's huge, because it's the process of owning your own story and telling it in a way that makes sense to you, rather than having somebody else tell that story for you. It was also powerful for me as a listener to hear that story, because I believe building peace on a larger scale works according to the same set of principles: finding empathy and building a sense of belonging. Storytelling has that power. It has the potential to put the dream, desire, and the struggle of what it means to be human into words, and to make a difference. And like Mr. George's story had taught me as a kid in school all those years ago, you don't need a toothbrush or even a cup, because when you look around you, when we get to explore and unpack and listen deeply, listen in new ways, we realize the world provides all the things that you need. Story is a binding force, and we can use it all the time, whenever there is conflict in our world, in our lives, in our communities, and we can help each other just by listening. If you would like to learn more about the specific programs or the new programs, the work that we do to empower you from marginalized groups, or our Stories as Medicine initiative, if you would like to learn how you can support this work or be part of the story of change, then don't hesitate to reach out to myself or contact us at the International Storytelling Center. Namaste, and thank you all for listening.
Our time together is nearly finished, but our work is not done. May our spirits be renewed and our resolve strengthened as we meet the challenges of the week to come. Please help me close this service now. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world.
My name is Brian Kleske, and I'm happy that we could be together today. Thank you for joining us, and please come back whenever you like. We will post another pre-recorded virtual church service next Sunday. Please remember that our services are recorded in advance, so sometimes events move forward without us. However, you can find up-to-date information on local events, social justice issues, inspiration, and content for all ages on our Facebook page. We hope you will join us for the virtual coffee hour after this service. Our postlude is Something Inside by British singer-songwriter Labi Siffre, performed by Kim R. It was an anti-apartheid song and helped Karen become aware of the racial injustice in South Africa, but also at home. Karen tells us Siffre was also a British black gay man, and so the song took on more meaning as a song that looked at oppression. It's a very popular song in the United Kingdom, but few folks know of it here. As you make your way through the week, remember these words: you are good, you are loved, we all need a little work, and we're all in this together. And there's nothing left to say except, yay, church!
The higher you build your barriers, the taller I become. The farther you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can deny me, you can decide to turn your face away. No matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone, oh no. Something inside so strong, oh, something inside so strong. The more you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing. You hide behind walls of Jericho, your lies will come tumbling. Deny my place in time, you squander wealth that's mine. My light will shine so brightly it will blind you. 'Cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone, oh no. Something inside so strong, oh, something inside so strong. Brothers and sisters, when they insist we're just not good enough, well, we know better. Just look them in the eyes and say, we're gonna do it anyway, gonna do it anyway, we're gonna do it anyway, 'cause something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone, oh no. Something inside so strong, oh, something inside so strong, oh, something inside so strong.